156 games into the season. Y'all know me. I'm an optimist. I always try to find the silver lining. I try to look forward. I don't want to look behind. I'll be critical when it requires it. And I like to, make sure we're all on the same page about what the Brewers are seeing, what we're seeing, and maybe sometimes we don't see the same thing. Tonight I saw what y'all were seeing. I mean, Eric Lauer was shoving. I didn't dislike the Freddy Peralta move. But yeah, the Brewers let another opportunity go by. That has to be the last get-out-of-jail-free card of the deck. 6 to go. Let's get it.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, weekend. Good vibes. Positivity, right? Good vibes. This is it. This is the last weekend of the regular season. The Brewers still are just a half game back. We got a lot to talk about in today's episode of Locked On Brewers. I'm Dominic Cotroneo. This is your only daily podcast Monday through Friday right here dedicated to the Brew Crew all season long. Quick announcement. We are going to be doing quick recap pods, not, full 20-minute episodes, but for the weekend. I'm just going to hop in. You're going to have a feed ready first thing in the morning, Saturday and Sunday. I know not generally a podcast listening day, but hey, if you got 10 minutes to kill, if you got to do the dishes, if you got to clean up the house, what I'm planning on doing is just updating you real quick on what happened around the league and what happened in the baseball over the weekend. So there will be an episode for you tomorrow morning. There will be an episode for you Sunday as the Brewers are in this race. And we're back to normal, our regularly length schedule Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So the Brewers, half game back still. It is what it is. Let's talk about it. Before we get to that, into the actual analysis of this game, I want to tell you today's episode is brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline is where the game starts. Had a great time on WTMJ yesterday. I'm the post-game host on Brewers Extra Innings. I'm also the statistician of Valley Sports Wisconsin. Yesterday, we had a lot of great callers on the show, and if you weren't aware, you can call in and you can participate. I'm on the show all weekend long, so if you want that, if you need that fix immediately, right, you can call in, you can text in, you can tweet me. We can have a conversation right there on the air tonight after the Brewers hopefully get back on track with a win, right? 4-2 the loss last night. Avisail Garcia, of all people, hits a grand slam, his first career grand slam, and it comes off Freddy Peralta and the Brewers in the 8th inning. The Brewers fall 4-2. Here's the thing. I tweeted this, and I'm going to remind everybody this. If you want to blame Freddy Peralta, if you want to blame the pitching staff, if you want to blame Craig Counsell for pulling Eric Lauer after 5 innings, your blame is in the wrong spot. The blame is getting 9 hits and only 2 runs. The blame is going 2 for 8 with runners in scoring position and nothing really getting out of it. The blame is having a leadoff double from your 9-hitter who's hitting over 300 for the last month or so, and then having the top of the order once again go down 1-2-3. The blame is having the bases loaded multiple times and not being able to get a run across. The blame is having 2 doubles in an inning and not be able to get and a walk and not able to score a run. The blame is being too aggressive and pushing a little too hard and trying to steal a bag when he shouldn't have been. The offense is the blame if that's what you're getting at. The Brewers, once again, we've said this over and over and over again. Why is this offense unable to get the clutch hit, the base hit with a run in scoring position? And to their credit, though, Craig Counsell said this postgame, and I kind of go hodgepodge on it. I go back and forth on it. They were hitting the ball as hard, and sometimes you hear them oh, yeah, okay, yeah. They were hitting the ball hard. We've heard that before. But, they were averaging over 100 miles an hour of exit velocity. Everybody was hitting the ball hard. Victor Caratini hit the ball to second base over 103 miles an hour on the double play to end the inning. He also had a knock that was a great play at short. That was his hardest hit ball of the game, of the year, actually, 113 off the bat for his base hit earlier in the game. Willy Adames hit a ball off a pitcher's leg at 110 miles an hour, and he was still retired out. It was one of those nights for the Brewers. It wasn't like they were striking out a million times and not even putting the ball in play. They were actually putting the ball in play. Okay, so there's a difference in the difference appointment, I guess, in a way. I do want to make that clear. Yes, the offense underperformed tonight, but in a way, it was a bad luck kind of night. The kind of night that we saw in the first couple of weeks in the season when we were saying, man, the Brewers are crushing the ball and not getting anything out of it. Remember, we had a whole discussion about expected batting average and expected slugging, and that in the first month of the season, The Brewers have one of the lowest expected sluggings, or one of the best expected sluggings, but one of the lowest actual sluggings. They've been one of the teams that were quote-unquote bad luck quality contact. That's what the Brewers were last night. But hey, that's not an excuse. It happens. You got to rise above it and get through it. The offense, they went with the righty lineup, and I thought they performed well early. Keston Hiura got on base. He had a big double again against the lefty. He's been swinging better against lefties. I want to give him credit because he's been in a slump. Christian Yelich in the cleanup spot, getting a base hit through a shift at over 100 miles an hour. Loved to see that. Got to see him hit the Jets as well. The Brewers, on paper, should have enough offense to get through a left-handed pitcher. And once again, as we normally see, when the righty comes in from the bullpen, the mass exodus of righties in the starting lineup become lefties from the bench. Colton Wong, look at his splits this year. Rowdy Tellez, look at his splits this year. There's a reason to the madness. There's a reason to the platoon. The Brewers have always been, and you got to give them credit for being consistent. Brewers have always been in favor of getting the platoon advantage, getting the right-left advantage, because they feel that gives them the best chance to win the at-bat, and thus, if you win more at-bats, you're going to win more games. They've stayed consistent on that all season long. We're 156 games in. If you're still surprised by pinch hitters coming in a righty-heavy lineup, I don't know what to tell you. You've been living under a rock. This is what the Brewers do. This is their philosophy. This is an organizational pillar. They want to win the platoon advantage. They did that, and quite frankly, this lineup should have scored more than 2 runs. You know that, I know that, but they didn't last night, and they lose the game. There were multiple opportunities for them to add runs. They did not. The big one for me is the leadoff double by Tyrone Taylor in the bottom of the 7th inning, and then having the top of the order not even have a move, not even a base hit the other way, not even a fly ball the other way, not even a ground ball the other way to get him over to third base. That's the kind of stuff that drives teams crazy, drives managers, coaches, front office, players crazy, the situational hitting. But I'm sounding like a broken record at this point because you've heard it all season long. That's the reason the Brewers lost this game. Not a bad pitch to Avisail Garcia, not only going 5 for Lauer. We're going to get into the pitching here in the next segment. It's the offense, okay? Make sure you put your blame on the offense. More on everything going on with the pitching, the decision to bring in Freddy Peralta. We're going to talk about elsewhere with the Phillies losing, what the Brewers need to do down the stretch here. Before we get into that, I want to tell you about our presenting sponsor once again today, betonline.net, the #1 source for football betting information this season. You can find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, in-depth articles, and analysis on every single game you find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for sports wagering information, like live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every single sport out there. MMA, boxing, golf, MLB, NFL, NBA, college football, all of it at betonline.net. You can use your phone or you can use your desktop to learn more. BetOnline is where the game starts. The Brewers started this game with Eric Lauer. He pitched very well. And remember, he had an awful go of things against the Reds on, Saturday of last week. That was really bad. He had 39 pitches in the first inning, 3 walks in the first inning. There was a lot of rust. He ended up throwing 66 pitches in that game, not getting out of the third. It was a weird day for Eric Lauer. Here, you knew he was going to be on a pitch count. You had to make sure he was fresh and good to go. He didn't even get through 5 up-downs in that last game. He gets 5 up-downs, 72 pitches. Craig Counsell taps him on the shoulder. Hey, you did your job. Great job. We're going to need you one more time. Eric Lauer is going to start on Tuesday against the Diamondbacks. And as things are shaping up right now, that game is going to matter immensely for this wild card chase. So Eric Lauer did his job. Post-game comments were interesting. He said he felt he had more in the tank, but he equally understood the role and that the coaches and the front office are looking out for his health. That means, though, Tuesday, he's going to be let loose. He's going to get at least 90 pitches in on Tuesday. And again, he's somebody that's coming off the injured list. And you know it's going to deteriorate faster than you expect. Third time through the lineup is always a concern in today's baseball. This isn't a conversation about, back in the day they would go 9 no matter what. We're not having that conversation right now. You're not wrong, but that's not what this start was about. This start was about a guy making sure he gets back on track, keeping his confidence intact because he pitched phenomenal. The thing that I loved most about Eric Lauer last night, 0 walks, especially after the chaos that he had against the Reds last week, how poorly he pitched, the lack of command. He called it losing his lanes, finding where he needed to line up and make sure he can execute pitches. He got back on track with that. A ton of swings and misses, specifically on the fastball. 13 whiffs total, 10 of them on the four-seamer. Fantastic stuff for a guy that only throws 94, and I say only with air quotes there, okay? He still throws hard, but compared to some of the guys that you expect, as I was looking at his fastball whiff rate numbers, he's in the top 10 in baseball for swings and misses on fastballs in the zone. Think about that for a second. Fastballs in the strike zone. Those are pitches that are meant to be hit by the best hitters in the world. They don't miss fastballs when you're at this level. When you're at Major League Baseball, you don't miss a fastball in the strike zone. But yet Eric Lauer is in the top 10 for whiff rate on fastballs in the zone. And he's among the lower end of velocity on this list. Garrett Cole's on this list. George Kirby's on this list. Spencer Strider, Alcantara. You're looking at Robbie Ray, Carlos Rodon. Those kind of names are on this list. And then there's Lauer, who sits 93, 94. That shows you what he's doing. The ball is really is hidden very well. It's got some spin. It's got some ride. It's even got a little bit of sink going on yesterday, too, I noticed. But it's good to see Eric Lauer get back on track into like April version of Eric Lauer. And he's got one more start. So don't go to bed on it yet. He's going to have another really big start coming on Tuesday against the Diamondbacks. Let's talk about the Freddy Peralta decision. And I talked about this on postgame last night. The big thing that I feel with Freddy Peralta, and first and foremost, I'm 100% on board with the call. And if you want to say, Dom, stop always agreeing with Craig Counsell. I have disagreed with Counsell in the past. I agree with this call for two reasons. Number one, Freddy Peralta could give you length, okay? He can give you multiple innings. And as the Brewers had hoped, if they had got more runs, they would have certainly left him in there with a little more of a leash. And maybe if the Brewers were up 5-0, he would have been maybe a little more comfortable. And this is something that just because he starts the inning a little bit, starting the 7th inning as opposed to the first inning, so be it. He had plenty of time to warm up. He knew exactly the role that he was going to be in pregame. It was communicated to him. He understood his role. He was able to prepare for that role. He was warming up and stretching with plenty of time in the bullpen. And his his first inning out of the pen was phenomenal. 9 pitches, 3 up, 3 down. Looked like it was going to be no big deal. And then you go into starter mode. Like, all right, sit down, gather my energy, and get back out there. And he was 1 pitch away from getting out of that 8th inning. So my first reason is the fact that he was prepared for this. There wasn't an odd situation. He was able to warm up properly. He got a clean inning, didn't have to inherit any runners. He should be able to handle that. The second reason I fully support this is because I see y'all in my mentions on my post-game show responding to @Brewers. All y'all are saying, stop throwing Bush, stop throwing Rogers, stop throwing Boxberger. Okay. Craig Counsell did it. He said, okay, I'm not going to throw Bush or Rogers in a high-leverage situation here tonight. I'm going to go to Freddy Peralta. All hands on deck. We need our best at this time of the season. Then he gives up the grand slam. And everyone turns around, why are you throwing Freddy Peralta in a relief role? Wait. Time out. You just said the other high-leverage guys on this team are the ones that you don't want to see pitching. Okay, that's fine. You already used Peter Strzelecki in this game. Justin Topa is still coming back from injury, and he's good, but I don't think you want him to have the game on the line quite yet. You want to see a little more from him. I don't have an issue with Freddy Peralta. Craig Counsell had to make a decision and say, you know what? He could potentially give us 3 innings and finish out this game, or he gives us 2 strong innings and I figure out something for the 9th. If there's traffic against him, I can always pull in a Hobie Milner kind of thing. And I also love keeping him in there for Brian Anderson and for Avi Garcia. Righty. You weren't going to go to Hobie in that situation. And he was a 1-2 count on Avi Garcia. It was a bad fastball that he hit out for a home run. And it was Avi's first game back from the IL. He was 0 for 3 at that point in the game. He's not able to run anything out because of his hamstring. It made sense. It perfectly made sense. It was a poorly executed pitch. It's okay to admit when the guy you wanted to succeed failed. Freddy Peralta failed on that 1 pitch, and especially failed, though, on the 4-pitch walk to Brian Anderson. That was the play of the game, in my opinion, because he just had a clutch strikeout of Charles LeBlanc and had a chance to get out of that frame without any damage against a struggling Brian Anderson. No, not that Brian Anderson. The Marlins Brian Anderson. He had a chance to get out of the inning right there and not even have to worry about a legitimate power threat in Avi Garcia. Instead, he walked him on 4 pitches. That was the first failure of execution by Freddy. He still was ahead 1-2 on Avi Garcia. He left a fastball over the middle of the plate. He made a mistake. I don't think that mistake happens if you're starting. That mistake can happen if you're relieving. That mistake can happen if you're closing. This is the up against it mode that the Brewers are in right now. You're darned if you do, and you're darned if you don't. If you brought in Matt Bush and he gave up the grand slam, you guys would be at torches and pitchforks. Just like you guys are still mad. Not everybody. I'm not looping everybody into this. But a lot of folks are mad saying, why would you put Freddy Peralta in a relief situation? Weren't y'all just asking to see somebody else? You saw somebody else. He had a phenomenal 7th inning. He made one really, really bad pitch to a good hitter. I don't know what else there is to say. I was fine with it. I'm 100% fine with it. You get beat by your best. And you got beat by your best pitch that you failed to execute. It'd be another story like we've talked about Devin Williams throwing his cutter a little too much as of late, and it seems to fail him every time. It'd be one thing if he was throwing like a changeup in that situation to Avi Garcia. Like, wait, why are you throwing a changeup to a righty? That's not even your third best pitch, right? He was throwing a fastball at 96 miles an hour. He wanted to have that a little bit higher. It caught too much middle low of the plate. Fastball Freddy, that's his nickname. It is his best. I'm fine with it. He just got beat. It happens. There are professionals on the other side as well. Okay, that was a big rant. I got angry there. I'm sorry. Okay, back to positivity, Dom. We're going to talk about the Phillies. We're going to talk about the week ahead. We're going to talk about some crazy travel coming up in just a moment. The Phillies got swept by the Cubs. The Brewers owe a gift basket down there to Wrigley. The Cubs went 6-0 against the Phillies this year, by the way. 6-0. That series is what the Phillies are going to circle if they miss the playoffs because of the Brewers. Going 0-6 against Chicago Cubs, that's insanity. No one saw that coming. But for the Brewers, they had an opportunity to jump them. But let's be honest. Cool, you would have been a half game up ahead of a doubleheader coming up for the Phillies going to the Nationals today. Here's the thing. Let's say the Brewers did win the game last night, and they're up half a game, and they win today. Cool. But then if the Phillies go 2-0, you're right back to where you started. You're still technically a game back because you'll have the same record. So the Brewers are begging for a split. They'd love an 0-2 day from the Phillies and keep the slide going. I don't think that's going to happen. But if the Brewers win today and then the Phillies split, you're right back in that same situation I just described. You'll be tied in record, but essentially a game back because of the tiebreaker. And I'm not so mad about being tied because it just takes one day. If the Brewers are tied heading into the last day of the season, yes, they would need help from the Astros, but you'll have Corbin Burns on the mound. I like the sound of that. I really do. I'd prefer it to be just win and you're in type situation, but the Brewers are still right there with an opportunity. The catch, though, in these final 6 games, we talked about it starting this week after the off day on Monday. The worst the Brewers can go in these final 9 games is 7-2. Well, they've already used up those 2 losses. And Sandy Alcantara goes tonight. Zach Gallen will go next week for the Diamondbacks. You got 2 more bona fide aces. The guy tonight is going to win the Cy Young. The guy next week is going to finish top 5 in Cy Young voting. It's not getting any easier. You need to dig down and find something. Because only 2 runs against pretty much a bullpen day from the Marlins doesn't exactly bode well for having confidence against Alcantara tonight, if you get what I'm saying. Something's got to click. And maybe, just maybe I'm naive. Maybe I'm just a little bit too optimistic. But if you beat Alcantara with some runs, with some damage, does that catapult you forward? Like, wait a minute. We can do this for this final week. There's an opportunity presented for the Brewers here today against the Marlins. But for the Phillies, talking about schedules. So they got to play the doubleheader today. It was supposed to be tomorrow. But because of Hurricane Ian on its way up the coast, thoughts and prayers to everybody down in Florida being impacted by this terrible storm right now. But because of the hurricane's path right now, they moved up the doubleheader to make sure they got it in for Friday to today. They're going to play a day game tomorrow because the forecast says the rain's going to arrive tomorrow night. But if that game does get washed out, they'll have to play another doubleheader on Sunday. And all of these games, a day game yesterday at Chicago, a day game, day-night doubleheader, day game today, day game tomorrow, day game Sunday, that wears. That's a lot of early morning. That's a lot of coffee. You got to get up and go kind of thing. Keep that in mind. It's a hard travel stretch right now for the Phillies, and then they got to go to Houston. And I'm going to say it over and over and over again. Astros are going to be the 1 seed. But they have to set up their pitching. They have to set up their offense to make sure they see some live batters, to see some live pitching, because they're going to sit on the bench for a week. They're not going to see anything live for a week. So they're going to still, Astros, play well, at least maybe for a few innings or so. They're going to see the main guys next week in Houston. Keep that in mind. This is going to come down to the final day if the Brewers keep winning. Because it's kind of like match play in golf. If you're a big golf guy like myself or gal, you know in match play, the best rule of thumb, the big practice to know if you're playing in match play, right? Where strokes are, it's just if you beat your opponent by 1 stroke, that counts as 1. Even if you beat your opponent by 5 strokes, that still only counts as 1. You're 1 up, right? You always assume your opponent is going to make their putt. You always assume that mentally. And then when they don't, you adjust from there. The Brewers are in that boat right now. They have to assume the Phillies are going to win every single game they play, but they probably won't. That's why it's so frustrating to still be on the outside looking in. The Brewers must win 6 in a row. They can't keep using this get out of jail free card, because at this point, it's not even get out of jail free. It's more like posting bail, right? You're out of jail, but it costed you something, and the cost right now is days left in the season. They're posting bail from here in if they lose on the same day the Phillies lose. It doesn't feel great, but you're out. You need to be better and make sure you don't go back into that situation. That's what's ahead for them. And tonight, holy cow, what a task. What a matchup. If you don't got a ticket yet, get one. I want to see you at the ballpark. This is going to be epic. Corbin Burnes, Sandy Alcantara. Heck yes, sign me up. This is going to be a blast tonight at American Family Field. The Brewers have a shot. There's no reason to abandon ship 156 games in. You've got all winter to sit and mope and whine and talk about what went wrong in the season. I saw a lot of folks wanting to abandon ship last night on the text line on WTMJ, on my Twitter account. I'm done with this team. This is over with. I can't do this anymore. 6 more. You can do this. 6 more. Okay? The players want it. You want it. Craig Counsell wants it. The front office wants it. There's still enough time to make a heck of a story. I always like to say when I'm playing golf and you start out poorly, if I'm caddying for my guys and they start out poorly, or they're in a really weird spot, they have a really tough shot ahead of them, I say, hey, what a story it will be, right? 6 games to go, everything looking bleak. What a story this could be. Alcantara versus Burnes tonight. Let's have some fun. Catch me on postgame tonight. Brewers Extra Innings on WTMJ. You can listen online, WTMJ.com, or on your radio dial. You can always call in onto the show as well. Whole lot of fun this week. Great to be back in the booth. And, yeah, this is it. I'll be back tomorrow with a little mini pod for you, recapping the day, talking about what the Phillies did in their doubleheader today against the Nationals. We'll be having mini pods coming all weekend long, and then back with your regular full-length pod on Monday, recapping the weekend and getting ready for the final series of the year against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Thank you for listening or watching on YouTube. I'm Dominic Cotroneo. Let's stay positive. Let's stay optimistic. Don't worry. There's a whole winter that we can sit and debrief, but let's focus on the task at hand. Job's not finished. Brewers have got to win a lot of baseball games down the stretch. Let's have some fun. See you at the ballpark. Until next time, keep on swinging.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.